Google has just pulled off the greatest comeback in the history of Silicon Valley. Here's the thing about it. 2 years ago, Google's situation was extremely bad. When OpenAI launched ChatGPT, it wasn't just a product launch, but a direct attack on Google's 20-year search monopoly. This was the first time Google's search business, from where it gets most of its revenue, was facing an existential threat. Google took this situation so seriously that they declared an emergency situation code named DEAD. Even Google's co-founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, had to come out of retirement to review Google's office code. But after all this, what actually happened? Comedy, yes, absolute comedy. First, in a hurry, Google flooded ChatGPT with replies. And in the same ad that they created themselves, they showed a factual error about the James Webb Telescope. Because of this mistake, $100 billion was wiped out from Google's market cap.
And Alphabet has lost $100 billion in market share after a mistake in its Twitter advertisement was revealed for its new chat AI called Brad, with the chatbot giving an inaccurate answer.
And to be honest, part of it wasn't even the investors' fault. After this, Google rebranded Gemini and showcased Gemini's amazing capabilities with some demos. But it turned out that the demo wasn't live. It was staged, where still frames were used. Then several other fuck-ups happened, like in image generation, AI overview, where it was literally advising users to eat rocks. Extra, extra. Now, while all this was happening, OpenAI was launching new models back-to-back. Even new players like XI, DeepSea, Cloud, Meta, all were far ahead of Google. Google's stock price was falling crazily. Their core AI team, the one that built the Transformer architecture, was leaving Google to join other AI companies. The whole world was looking at Gemini as just a joke. The situation was so bad that some reports even suggested that Sundar Pichai could be fired. But, fast forward to today, the tables have completely turned.
Shares of Alphabet hitting all-time highs today, fueled by its launch of the new AI model, Gemini 3, which is now topping the leaderboards.
If I had a crown in my hands, I would place it on the heads of Google because they have done it again. They have the world's best AI model.
Now, this is another benchmark-topping model, which used to be the main event to flex against competitors. But in today's environment, Google is positioning it as more than that, an ambient, deeply integrated AI system that builds on the successes of past versions.
In just a few months, Google has not only matched the competition but is crushing them completely. Just look at the stats. Recently, Google launched Gemini 3, and it is already beating almost all competitors in nearly every benchmark. In fact, its capabilities are so advanced that Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, publicly praised it. In image generation, Google had launched Nano Banana some time ago, which was already far better than all image generation platforms. And now Google has launched the upgraded version, Nano Banana Pro, which is insane. The same is true for video generation. Veo 3 is today the best video generation model. Sura, Runway, and other models are not even close. So, at a time when Google was losing in the AI war and its stock price was falling now due to the strategy of the past few months, Google's stock has skyrocketed. In fact, just one day after the launch of Gemini 3, Larry Page became the world's third richest man, surpassing Jeff Bezos. But now the question is, when Google was losing so badly at one time, how did it suddenly make a comeback? What strategy did Sundar Pichai use, because of which today Google is leading in all categories? And most importantly, now that Google has already surpassed everyone, what is its next plan? Well, in today's video, we are going to talk about exactly this. So, hello guys, before we move forward, I request you to subscribe to our The Hidden Proof YouTube channel. Right now, this channel really needs your support. So, without wasting any time, let's start. If any company wants to win the AI war, there are 3 critical things inside it. And if a company cracks all 3, it will have an unfair advantage that no other company can beat. Now, what are these 3 things and why are they so important? To understand this, we will use the analogy of the oil wars between nations 50 years ago. Because to a large extent, the pattern is very similar. At that time, any nation that had these 3 critical things won the war. Like Saudi Arabia, which had all 3, became a superpower. Venezuela, which had only 1, went bankrupt. And today, the same pattern is following in AI. Google's plan is actually to capture all 3 of these things together. In fact, it is far ahead of other AI companies in this game. Okay, so let's not confuse anymore. And let's start with the first one, which is oil reserves. Just like any nation needs oil reserves to win an oil war, because without oil, how can anyone win, right? Similarly, in the AI war, these oil reserves are training data. The more training data a company has, the more efficient and accurate its AI model will be. Now, this training data can be in different formats. For example, LLMs like ChatGPT, Gemini Cloud mostly need text data. Image models like Midjourney need images, and video models like Sora, Veo 3 need video training data. But now, where does a company get this data from? Well, mostly there are 3 sources. Number 1, internal sources. This includes the company's own applications from which they regularly get data. Number 2. Internet scraping. Companies scrape the internet to get data from other websites. And number 3. Data purchase. Here they basically pay other companies to get data. So let's look at the situation of each major AI company. Starting with Meta. Meta has a regular data source, which is Instagram and Facebook. People share posts, reels, and stories every day. This data is actually a goldmine because text data comes from user comments and image and video data come from reels, posts, and stories. Now let's talk about OpenAI. OpenAI doesn't have its own source. It mostly relies on internet scrapes, partnerships, and deals, like the one it made with Microsoft. So basically, OpenAI has no edge here. It is dependent on other companies. Next is Anthropic. Its situation is exactly like OpenAI. That is, it has no source of its own. Next is XI, which is X, which leverages Twitter's data. This is important because X is a real-time news-sharing platform where news comes first and users give their opinions on it, which is very, very relevant. Apart from this, X is used by celebrities, politicians, everyone, and that is their primary source to reach people. So yes, XCI leverages Twitter data very well. In fact, this is the reason why its growth was so accurate even in a short time. Now let's talk about the big daddy of all, which is Google. Google is the world's largest search engine where every website is indexed. It has YouTube, which is the largest video platform in the world. Google Images is the largest image repository. Google Maps has data for every country and city street. Google Books, where 40 million books are scanned. In addition, Google has Google Scholar, Translate, Google Pay, Podcasts, Weather, Google News, and even Android and Chrome data, where user behavior and interaction patterns can be analyzed. So yes, in training data, no one even comes close to Google. Text, images, videos, Google has the largest source of all. And all this data, like search, images, YouTube, Android, feeds new data automatically every day. So you can see it's like an unlimited source. Now do you know? Even with so much data, Google was missing one thing. See, all these sources like websites, YouTube, Extra, these are all creator-led content, where some writers write blogs or creators make videos. So basically, some creators create content here, and the rest of the audience just watches it. They don't have any opinion. So if you notice, human conversation was missing here. That is, what is the user's opinion about anything? And guess what? To fill this gap, Google signed a deal with Reddit for $60 million per year, allowing Google to use Reddit's data. Similarly, OpenAI also made a similar deal, and that's the reason why whenever you ask something to these chatbots, somewhere there's a Reddit link in the citation. So now we have talked about training data, which is the oil reserve. But just having oil reserves isn't enough. To process this oil, you also need refineries to extract and process it. Now, in the AI scenario, these refineries are compute, that is, processing resources. Now in compute, there are also two categories, chips and cloud. Talking about chips, all AI companies including Meta, XCI, Microsoft, Anthropic, all depend on NVIDIA for chips, i.e. GPUs. And this is the reason why. Because of the AI boom, NVIDIA's valuation went to $4 trillion. But do you know, Google is the only company that doesn't depend on NVIDIA for chips. It has its own chips, tensor processing units, TPUs. Google made these chips years ago when ChatGPT didn't even exist, and that's because Google had been working on AI ML for many years. Now these companies are entering only because of generative AI. These TPUs are very powerful chips, and all of Google's AI models, including Gemini, Search Algo, VO3, etc., run on them. Now, it's not that Google doesn't use NVIDIA. It does, like on Google Cloud Platform, GCP, their cloud service platform, NVIDIA GPUs are also available. But this isn't because Google doesn't trust its own chips. It's because businesses using GCP have code optimized for NVIDIA's CUDA software. So basically, Google rents NVIDIA's GPUs to businesses. Okay. When I found out about this for the first time, which I would like to share, check this out. Until now, Google used its TPUs only for internal use. But then this news came out that Google was opening its TPUs for other companies as well. And as soon as this news came out, NVIDIA's stock price took a 6.7% hit.
There is talk of a new but old challenger, someone who could end NVIDIA's trillion-dollar monopoly. I'm talking about Google. On Monday night, a big headline shook up the tech world. Reports said that Meta was looking to buy chips from Google. They want to reduce their reliance on NVIDIA, so Meta turned to Google. No deal has been signed yet, but if confirmed, it could be worth billions of dollars. And more importantly, it would reduce NVIDIA's dominance. On cue, the shares crashed. On Tuesday morning, NVIDIA was down by almost 7%. It ended the day.
So we talked about chips, but to process all this data, you also need a massive cloud infrastructure where thousands of chips work together. But do you know? Google has a massive advantage here too because it has Google Cloud Platform, GCP, which is the world's third largest cloud service platform. So for this cloud, Google doesn't need to go anywhere else. It already has massive data centers available. Now, if we talk about other companies like OpenAI, it doesn't have its own cloud infrastructure, so it had to partner with Microsoft, which gave OpenAI access to Microsoft's Azure cloud service. In return, OpenAI had to give a large stake to Microsoft, plus sign exclusive cloud rights. xAI and Meta also built their own data centers, in which they spent billions of dollars, which will take years to get a return. Now, since Google has its own cloud service platform, it gets another big advantage. Thousands of businesses already run on GCP, like Spotify, Snapchat, PayPal, etc. For these companies, integrating the Gemini API is literally a few clicks because it's already in Google's ecosystem. For other AI models, you have to do a new setup and integration. So now we have talked about oil reserves and oil refineries, where oil reserves are training data and oil refineries are compute. But just having oil and processing it isn't enough. Distributing it is equally important. That is, in the case of oil, how good a country's diplomatic relations are with other nations to sell oil. And a similar thing in AI models is distribution. And this is very important to understand. So listen carefully. When OpenAI launched ChatGPT, they had the first mover advantage. There was no competition, so people went to them. But now, 3 years later, the situation is completely different. If you compare ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, and Gemini, they all perform almost similarly. Yes, some may be a bit better at writing, some at coding, but the overall difference is negligible. And the same thing that is happening in text will in some time happen with image and even video models. All will come to almost the same level. And this is not just my speculation. Google's internal leak documents also say the same, in which they mentioned, "We have no moat, and neither does OpenAI," meaning Google itself admits that in AI models, no one has a long-term competitive advantage, neither they nor OpenAI. Now the question is, when all models eventually reach the same level, where will the competition be? Well, that's where distribution comes in. Making a crazy model is one part, and finding its use case, that is, distributing that model, is another task. Let me explain with an example. Some time ago, Meta launched an insane model called SAMS 2, which is a segment anything model. Now its upgraded version, SAMS 3, is also out. This model can isolate any object in a video. You just have to click on the object. That's it. Now this was a very revolutionary model. But what happened in the end? Nat made a crazy model, but it never reached the general public. And guess what? Its actual use case was realized by Adobe and Apple. Apple launched this technology in its video editing software Final Cut Pro as Magnetic Mask, where you can remove the background with just one click, no green screen needed, and Adobe integrated a similar feature in Premiere Pro. So making crazy models was done by Meta, and finding its use case and distributing it was done by Apple and Adobe. And the same case will happen with other categories of AI models. In fact, it's already happening with some. For example, Google announced that they are launching AI Overviews, integrating AI into Google Search. This feature was a direct attack on OpenAI Search and Perplexity. Because Google already has 90% market share in search, and it even owns Chrome, where Google is the default search engine. So just think about it. If Google AI Overview becomes as accurate as Perplexity, why would anyone even use Perplexity, right? And to tackle this exact threat, both Perplexity and OpenAI launched their own browsers. Perplexity launched Comet, while OpenAI launched Atlas, so they could distribute their AI models. But do you know what? Google doesn't even need to think much about this because it already has Chrome. It just needs to integrate this feature. In fact, Google has already announced that it is integrating Gemini across Chrome, and this feature might roll out within just a few months. Now, browsers were just one example. Google's actual distribution layer is much deeper than this. Just look at this. Google already has Android, which is the world's largest mobile operating system, where the default assistant is Gemini. That means Google can directly reach 3 billion devices. And if Google wants, it can even pre-install Gemini as a standalone app. Just like Google's other apps, YouTube, Chrome, Photos, are already pre-installed. Talking about apps, Google Photos can integrate image editing models like Nano Banana. And in YouTube, VO3 models have already been integrated, so creators can use these models directly within the platform. Apart from this, Google has Google Workspace, where Gemini is integrated into Gmail, Docs, Sheets, Slides, Meet, etc. Right now, this Gemini support is available only for Google One users. Now, all these tools were for general users, but Google also has many tools for specific use cases. For example, if we talk only about coding, Google has Firebase Studio, Google Colab, IDX, and recently they even launched Anti-Gravity, which is a direct competitor to Cursor. And similarly, Google has many tools for different use cases. In fact, Google has launched several tools very recently as well, like Google Flow, where not only AI video generation is available, but also timeline-like features that give filmmakers more creative freedom. And for marketing campaigns, Google launched Pomelo, where you just need to put in your website link. And Pomelo can create an entire social media campaign according to your brand's colors, fonts, and style. Now, I can't explain every tool, otherwise the video will become very long. But I have created a category for many important tools, so you can pause the screen and read them. So in short, where all other companies are struggling with distribution, Google is already the market leader there. And honestly, this situation is very similar to what happened with Zoom during COVID. When lockdown started, Zoom became very popular because it was the first mover in online meetings. But over time, when Microsoft Teams and Google Meet evolved, they leveraged their ecosystems. Teams was pre-installed on Windows. Google integrated Meet into Gmail. And at a similar price to Zoom, they didn't just offer online meetings, but an entire workspace, docs, emails, storage, all integrated. And that's the reason why today most enterprises use Microsoft Teams and Google Meet instead of Zoom. And today, in AI, Google has that same unfair advantage. So don't forget to subscribe to our The Hidden Proof YouTube channel. We'll meet again in another new video. Till then, bye-bye friends.